The political fallout continues after Wednesday's pro-Trump insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. Members of Congress are now openly discussing impeachment and calling on the vice president and Trump's cabinet to invoke the 25th Amendment, which removes the sitting president who is unable or unwilling to do his job. And speaking of Trump's cabinet, it is smaller tonight. The Secretary of Transportation, Elaine Chao, says she is quitting over the president's actions. Here to talk about this is Ed Espinoza from Progress, Texas, and Brian Ruddle, the executive director of the Travis County GOP. Thank you so much for joining us, both of you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Ed, President Trump is accused of inciting the mob that stormed the Capitol yesterday. It took him hours to finally tell them to go home while calling them very special people. Is there a case to be made for invoking the 25th Amendment?
There's absolutely a case for invoking the 25th Amendment. For those who don't know what that is, that's where a majority of the cabinet and the vice president vote to remove the president from office. What we're seeing right now is a president who is out of control and will stop at nothing to get what he wants. We've seen these things before, but we're seeing them escalate at unprecedented levels right now. And what you saw yesterday at the Capitol was directly incited by the president, to the point that all of the major social media channels banned him because he put out false information, even in the statement where he tried to get them to stop. This is a problem, and it is now a national security threat, because keep in mind, he is still the commander-in-chief. That is a very presents a constitutional crisis for our country right now, and he cannot be trusted.
Brian, what are your thoughts on President Trump's behavior yesterday, and should he be held accountable, and if so, how?
Obviously, the president's actions were very concerning. These are things that should not happen in the United States. These are things that should not happen in a first-rate democracy. And they did, unfortunately. And yes, of course, President Trump needs to be held accountable for his actions. I think that there are a couple legislative things that they can do in order to help restrain some of those powers, provide greater oversight as to what is happening inside the White House right now. It's definitely concerning. I'm not sure exactly what the road forward is going to be. I know that a lot of Trump supporters may feel that if the 25th Amendment is invoked, that could be a coup realized in their eyes. So there's a lot of complexity in this issue.
Ed, there are a lot of people calling for Texas Senator Ted Cruz's resignation. You know, he led a small group of Republicans who objected to certifying Biden's win. He spewed baseless conspiracy theories about election fraud. Does he bear any responsibility for what happened at the Capitol yesterday?
100% Ted Cruz bears responsibility for what happened yesterday. Now, he's not the only one who was involved, but he himself was very involved. And it didn't just start with yesterday. He has been pushing rumors about it being a rigged election or about other conspiracies. And he has had a hand in this process when he has known that the claims he is making are not true. Senator John Cornyn, our other senator here in Texas, has had the courage of his convictions to stand up to these things. Ted Cruz has played politics with it, and really he should be held accountable for this. And the last thing I'll say is that for all the Republican voters that voted for Donald Trump and even voted for Ted Cruz, I know that many of them did not vote for what happened yesterday. But what happened yesterday largely happened in the name of those voters. And those voters are appropriately furious about that, and they should be. And that is why Donald Trump and Ted Cruz and anybody else who was involved should be held accountable and removed from office.
We are just about out of time. Brian, do you think Cruz should resign, and do you believe he has hurt his political future?
That remains to be seen. You know, politics is a very long game. I don't think it's a great look. Obviously, I think that the best way to remove somebody is through elections. One last thing before we stop off here. Yesterday, as the chaos happened, I want to personally thank Ed for reaching out to us at the Travis GOP to make sure that everybody was safe, secure. There was a lot of unknowns at the time. I want to thank him. Whenever you see an American step up and do something good, I think it needs to be recognized. So I personally want to thank you for reaching out. I think this is how we as Americans can come together. Neighbor to neighbor. That's how this is going to get done. It's not going to come from Washington. It's going to come from people willing to sit down, listen to each other without anger, without accusation, and realize we're all on the same team. So again, thank you, Ed.